We've spent 3 chapters on law. Now let's build something. This chapter shifts from what the rules are to how you actually operationalize them. And I'd argue this is the most immediately useful chapter in the course because this is what you'll do on Monday morning. 5 focus areas. First, knowing your data: inventory, classification, flow mapping, life cycle. You cannot protect what you cannot find, and I've never met an organization that knew where all its data was. Second, the program itself: governance structures, frameworks, who owns privacy, how decisions get made, and how you build a culture where the workforce actually cares. Third, the third parties: vendors, processors, cloud providers, because your data leaves your walls constantly and your liability doesn't. Fourth, when things go wrong: incident response, breach procedures, ransomware, plus the accountability documentation that proves you did the right things. And fifth, the consumer-facing machinery: rights requests, consent, preferences, retention, disposal, and the whole messy world of online tracking. 10 practical slides. Let's make privacy real. Let me start with the question I ask every client on day one. Where is your data? And I have never, not once, received a confident answer. Someone says the CRM. Someone else says there's a spreadsheet on a shared drive. Then, a junior analyst mentions the marketing team exports contacts to a personal tool. That's when the room goes quiet. So we build 3 things. First, an inventory. What data do you hold? Where does it live? Who owns it? Why do you have it? Think of it as a library catalog. Without one, you have books, but you don't have a library. Second, classification. Not all data is equal. Public marketing copy and social security numbers cannot get the same treatment, so you tier it: public, internal, confidential, restricted, whatever labels fit your culture. And the label drives the control. Restricted data gets encryption and access logging. Public data doesn't need it. Third, flow mapping. This is the one people skip and regret. Where does data move? From the web form to the CRM, to the analytics tool, to the offshore support team. Draw it. Actually draw it. Here's why flow mapping earns its keep. A client of mine was confident their data stayed onshore. The map revealed a marketing pixel shipping visitor data to a vendor's servers abroad. Nobody had lied. Nobody had known. So ask yourself, could you draw your own map today? Once you know where data is, the next question is how long it stays and where it goes. Data has a life cycle: collection, use, storage, sharing, retention, disposal, and each stage has its own risks. Most programs obsess over collection and storage, then completely ignore the back end. Let me tell you what that looks like in practice. I worked with an organization that had beautiful consent flows at collection. Truly excellent. Then I asked about a decommissioned system. Turns out, it was still running in a corner of the data center, holding 12 years of customer records, because nobody wanted to be the person who deleted something. That's the pattern. Data goes in easily and never leaves. Sharing controls are the other half. Who inside the organization can see what? And here, the principle is least privilege. People get access to what their job requires, nothing more. Sounds obvious. Then you discover the entire sales team has read access to the support ticket database because someone needed it once in 2019. External sharing needs the same discipline. Every outbound flow should answer 3 questions. What's the legal basis? What's the contractual protection? What's the minimum data set required? Here's my favorite test. Pick any data element you share with a vendor and ask, what would break if we stopped sending this? Often, nothing. So who's actually in charge of privacy at your organization? And I don't mean who's blamed, I mean who decides. That's governance, and it's the difference between a privacy program and a privacy person. Start with the framework. You need a structure, and you don't have to invent one. NIST has a privacy framework. There's ISO 27701. The FIPPs underpin most of them. Pick one, adapt it, don't build from scratch. Frameworks give you a vocabulary and a maturity model, and both are useful when you're talking to a board. Governance means defined roles. Someone owns privacy strategy. That's usually a chief privacy officer or equivalent. Business units own their own data. They are the data owners. Legal advisors. Security implements controls. And critically, there's an escalation path when they disagree, because they will. Let me share what separates real programs from paper ones. A real program has a privacy review gate in the product development process. You cannot ship without passing it. A paper program has a policy document that nobody reads. I once asked a client to show me their privacy policy. Beautiful document. Then I asked when a product had last been changed because of a privacy review. Long pause. So here's your question. Does your privacy function have the authority to say no? If not, it's advisory, not governance. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Your biggest privacy risk isn't a hacker. It's a well-meaning employee in a hurry. Think about how leaks actually happen. Someone emails a spreadsheet to the wrong Priya in the address book. Someone uploads a customer list to a free AI tool to summarize it. Someone takes a screenshot for a slide deck and forgets to redact. None of these people are malicious. All of them just wanted to finish a task. So, training matters, but let me be honest about what training usually is. An annual slide deck with a quiz nobody fails, clicked through at 4:55 on a Friday. Does anyone believe that changes behavior? What works is different. Make it role-specific. A developer needs different training than a sales rep. A support agent handling data subject requests needs specific scripts. Generic training teaches nobody. Make it frequent and short. 5 minutes when it's relevant beats an hour once a year. And build a culture where reporting is safe. Here's the test. If someone accidentally emails data to the wrong person, do they report it immediately or do they hope nobody noticed? If it's the second, your culture is broken and no policy will fix that. I've watched organizations turn this around by celebrating the person who reported their own mistake. That's not soft. That's the whole game. Let's talk about the data that leaves your building, because in a modern organization, most of it does. Here's the principle that surprises people. You can outsource the processing. You cannot outsource the accountability. If your vendor breaches your customers' data, your customers blame you. Your regulator names you. Your brand takes the hit. So, vendor management runs in 3 phases. Due diligence before you sign. What are their security certifications? Where do they store data? Who are their sub-processors? Have they had incidents? Then, contract, the data processing agreement. And this document should specify purpose limitation, security obligations, sub-processor rules, breach notification timelines, audit rights, and what happens at termination. That last one, deletion or return of data, gets forgotten constantly. Then, ongoing monitoring, because a SOC 2 report from 3 years ago tells you nothing about today. Cloud adds a wrinkle, the shared responsibility model. Your cloud provider secures the infrastructure. You secure what you put on it. I have seen so many teams assume the provider handles everything, then discover an unsecured storage bucket exposed to the internet. Let me leave you with this. Ask your team, how many vendors touch personal data? If the answer is a range rather than a number, you found your first project. Something has gone wrong. What now? And here's the thing about incident response. The plan you write matters far less than the muscle memory you build. Because at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, nobody reads a document. Start with vocabulary because it's legally significant. An event is anything observable. An incident is an event that compromises security. A breach is a legal term with statutory definitions that trigger notification obligations. Not every incident is a breach. Getting this wrong in either direction is expensive. The phases are familiar: prepare, detect, contain, eradicate, recover, learn. Preparation is where the real work sits. Do you know who to call? Is outside counsel already retained? Is your forensics firm on contract, or will you be negotiating an engagement letter while your systems burn? Ransomware deserves special attention. It used to be an availability problem. Now it's almost always a confidentiality problem too, because attackers exfiltrate before encrypting. Double extortion. So the question isn't just can we restore from backup, it's what did they take? Let me give you the single best piece of advice I have. Run a tabletop exercise. Get the actual people in a room, give them a scenario, and watch what happens. The first one is always a disaster. That's the point. Better to discover the gaps in a conference room than in a courtroom. Let me ask you something. If a regulator walked in tomorrow, could you prove you did the right things? Not say it, prove it. That's accountability. And it's a specific concept. It means you're not just responsible for complying, you're responsible for demonstrating compliance. And demonstration means documentation. So what does the paper trail look like? Your policies and procedures, obviously. Your data inventory. Your privacy impact assessments. Your vendor due diligence files. Your training completion records. Your incident logs, including incidents you decided weren't breaches and why you decided that. Your consent records. Your rights request handling. Now here's the counterintuitive part. The decisions you documented that turned out wrong are often more protective than the ones you got right, because they show a process. A regulator looking at a bad outcome asks, was this recklessness or was this reasonable judgment that didn't pan out? Your documentation answers that question. I worked an FTC inquiry once where the client's saving grace was a risk assessment memo. It had actually identified the risk and made a documented decision to accept it with reasoning. The outcome was still bad, but the process was defensible. So my rule is simple. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. Harsh, but that's how enforcement works. Now let's turn to the individual. What can they ask you to do and how do you actually handle it? The rights are increasingly standard across state laws. Access, know what you hold about me. Deletion, remove it. Correction, fix it. Portability, give it to me in a usable format. And opt-out, stop selling or sharing or targeting me. Sounds manageable. Then you try to build it. Because here's the operational reality. A deletion request arrives. Now you must find that person across your CRM, your marketing platform, your analytics, your data warehouse, your backups, your vendors. And you must verify it's actually them, because deleting on a fraudulent request is its own breach. Verification is genuinely hard. Ask for too little, you're vulnerable. Ask for too much, you're collecting more data to honor a privacy request, which is absurd. Most laws require reasonable verification proportionate to the sensitivity. Consent and preferences are the other side, and these must be granular, revocable, and recorded. If someone opted out of marketing in 2023 and a new campaign tool doesn't know that, you've got a problem. Here's a story. A client honored deletion requests beautifully in production. Then their nightly backup restore quietly repopulated the records. Ghosts. So ask yourself, does deletion in your organization actually mean deletion? So why do organizations struggle with data retention? Let's actually think about that, because the answer isn't technical, it's psychological. Deleting feels risky. Keeping feels safe. Nobody was ever fired for having too much data. So the default becomes forever, and forever is a liability. Think about it this way. Every record you keep past its usefulness is a record that can be breached, subpoenaed, or requested. Data you don't have cannot hurt you. That's the whole argument for retention discipline. A retention schedule maps data categories to periods, and each period should have a justification: legal requirement, business need, or contractual obligation. If you can't name one, you don't need the data. Now here's the complication: legal hold. When litigation is reasonably anticipated, you must suspend deletion for relevant data. And this creates a genuine conflict. Privacy says delete, litigation says preserve. Preservation wins, and destroying data under hold is spoliation, which judges punish severely. Disposal is the final piece, and it must be secure, not just delete the file. Overwriting, cryptographic erasure, physical destruction for media. I've seen an organization sell old servers to a recycler with drives intact. The buyer found customer records. That's not a sophisticated attack. That's a forgotten step. So who at your organization owns disposal? If nobody, that's your answer. Let's finish this chapter with the messiest topic in privacy. What happens when you visit a website? You land on a page. Before you've read a word, dozens of scripts have loaded. Some are the site's own, most are not. Analytics, ad tech, session recording, chat widgets, social pixels. Cookies are the classic mechanism, a small file with an identifier. First-party cookies come from the site you're on, and they're mostly benign. Session management, remembering your language. Third-party cookies come from other domains, and those are the tracking engines. They let a network recognize you across thousands of sites. Online behavioral advertising is the business model built on this. Watch someone browse running shoes, hiking gear, and marathon blogs, and you can infer a lot. Then serve ads accordingly. Now, third-party cookies have been dying slowly. So what replaced them? Fingerprinting. Your browser reveals your screen resolution, fonts, time zone, graphics rendering quirks. Combine enough signals and you have a unique identifier. And here's what makes it insidious. You cannot delete it. There's nothing to clear. That's exactly why laws stopped saying cookies and started saying any technology that tracks. California's definitions are technology neutral for this reason. Let me leave you with a question. If a technique doesn't store anything on your device, is it still tracking? The law says yes.